There's breaking news tonight, action in Congress on the humanitarian crisis on the border, and we'll bring that to you as we go tonight. We begin, though, with a graphic reminder of what this is about. It's a new photo, which I do want to warn you is hard to look at, but we think shouldn't be ignored. With that, the photo shows the bodies of a man. His name is Alberto Martinez, and his daughter Angie washed up on the Mexican side of the Rio Bravo River. Now, they were from El Salvador and drowned trying to cross into the country. Drowned trying to cross into the United States. Even had they made it across that river, they might have faced a difficult and possibly dangerous future. What has become, keeping them honest, a human disaster involving the conditions these migrants now face in U.S. custody, especially kids. There are kids tonight who are living in filth and crowded together, young children who are caring for even younger children. They're living this way because of the numbers of people crossing the border and decisions made in Washington and policies set at the very top. A guest who joins us momentarily, a pediatrician, describes it this way: children being held in conditions comparable, she says, to torture facilities. Extreme cold temperatures, lights on 24 hours a day, no adequate access to medical care or basic sanitation or water or adequate food. Now, those are the conditions being reported to her. It's some of the people responsible, as you'll see, simply don't acknowledge that, even as they compare the influx of migrants to a storm or a flood or a tide, as if this all fell from the sky or rolled in from the sea. At the end of the day, though, this is not an act of God. These are people, poor people, young people, and whatever you think about the case they may have for coming here, they are here. They are now in custody here. And those words, in custody, don't just mean are being held, they mean in the care of, or as Webster's has it, the act or process of preserving in safety, which is not what's happening. We and others have reported on it. Here's what the New York Times wrote after children's advocates visited the facility in Clint, Texas. Now, this is the facility where yesterday we learned that about 250 kids had been taken out of because the overcrowding was so bad. This is also the facility where today we learned that about 100 kids have to be returned to. Quoting now from the Times, quote, most of the young detainees have not been able to shower or wash their clothes since they arrived at the facility. Those who visited said they have no access to toothbrushes, toothpaste, or soap. There is a stench, said Elora Mukherjee, director of the Immigrants' Rights Clinic at Columbia Law School, one of the lawyers who visited the facility. The overwhelming majority of children have not bathed since they crossed the border, she said. There is a stench, she said, speaking literally of human beings living worse than animals because animals at least have the means to clean themselves. She might have just as well have been speaking figuratively of the stench coming from places where the people responsible for all this are failing to take responsibility. Today, John Sanders, acting Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, stepped down. An official, unnamed, tells the Times it was not clear whether his departure is or is not related to revelations about these facilities. He'll be replaced by another acting official, the acting head of ICE, in yet another acting capacity. Today, his boss, the president, was asked whether he'd ask acting Commissioner Sanders to step down.
I didn't speak to him. I don't think I've ever spoken to him, actually. No, we have some very good people running it. And, I don't know anything about it. I hear he's a very good man. I hear he's a good person. I don't know him. I don't think I ever spoke to him.
He's heard good things about him, this official responsible for enforcing the president's supposedly tough border policy. But he's never spoken to the man, doesn't even know him. For all the president's tough talk on the border, he's never even spoken to one of his frontline officials, apparently. Or perhaps he's doing what he did with Paul Manafort. Barely knew him. Michael Cohen wasn't really important, or George Papadopoulos, the coffee boy. And again, perhaps it's not so odd that the president might be unacquainted with one of the officials carrying out his policy. He's also seems confused about one of the policies that began this whole cycle of kids in custody, zero-tolerance enforcement, which separated families at the border. The policy has since been abandoned. He still maintains falsely that the last administration was responsible for it and that he, President Trump, actually ended it. And now in a new twist, that this is what's driving the latest influx of families.
Under President Obama, you had separation. I was the one that ended it. Now, I said one thing. When I ended it, I said, here's what's going to happen. More families are going to come up. And that's what's happened.
Well, again, keeping them honest, the zero-tolerance policy that produced an explosion of family separations was conceived and executed by the Trump administration as a deterrent. They admitted that.
This is the wealthiest nation in the world. We have money to give toothpaste and soap and blankets to these kids in this facility in El Paso County right now.
Of course we do.
So why aren't we?
My point is, it's all a part of the appropriations process.
Appropriations or part of the stench. Perspective now from Dr. Dolly Lucio Severe. She's a pediatrician who recently visited the detention center in McAllen, Texas. Dr. Severe, what exactly did the kids you talked to tell you about the conditions that they're being kept in?
They all had a very similar story. They all reported that the lights were kept on 24 hours. I think that was the most uncomfortable thing for them. But, you know, the stuff that alarmed me the most, like I've mentioned, is that they all reported no access to hand washing. And equally alarming was the mothers with infants drinking formula from a bottle reported no access to washing the bottles for those infants.
Were you able to see, you know, the areas that they're kept in? Because I understand in the room you were in, there was some sort of wet wipes and things that could be used for cleaning. Were you able to see other areas?
No, we did ask for access into where the detainees were being held, but we were denied. The area that I saw was very clean. I mean, it was an office space. It was, you know, that's where they did their work, but it just stood out that at every single workstation, there must have been 12 or 15 computers in that room. There was a hand sanitizer and a container of Clorox wipes. So clearly the Border Patrol officers are worried about getting sick, which I understand. But it's just incomprehensible why that concern is not extended to the detainees that are in the crowded space themselves.
You also write about seeing evidence of trauma in these kids. Can you explain what the evidence was, how you came to that conclusion?
Yeah, the evidence that I saw was entirely based on their behavior. They were all responding inappropriately for their age. They were all extremely fearful, which I understand considering the circumstances, but then after that, extremely subdued in that they allowed me to examine them easily, which is completely unexpected and inappropriate behavior for their age, I would say. The 3 children that were unaccompanied and that were in the daycare setting had more evidence of trauma. One of them, when he came to the room where I was breathing heavily the entire time. And I asked the Coast Guard officer and she said, you know, he just started doing this. But I think that trauma was from seeing his teenage brother, who he hadn't seen in 3 weeks, who was the person he came into the center with. But initially there's no bonding. He didn't run to his brother. He wasn't glad to see him. It was just this looking straight down and panting. The 2 other girls that were alone kept repeating the same statement. Maybe it's something they're being told, but they said, my dad is getting the papers, my dad is getting the papers, my dad is getting the papers, and that's all they kept going back to, and inappropriately, I would say.
Is this anything what you expected it to be? I mean, did you expect to find this? Is it better, worse than you anticipated?
Some things were better and some things were worse. The hygiene I'm completely dumbfounded by, because even if you don't care about the humanity of it and you're thinking of dollars and cents, it's a lot cheaper to get soap than to send people to the ER or quarantine them with flu. And that's common sense. You don't need a doctor to tell you that washing your hands is going to reduce the spread of an infection. So that I was completely dumbfounded by. The bottles, that's something that almost feels reportable to CPS. I mean, it is. It just, if I had a parent come to my office and say they're not washing their formula bottles for days on end, I would be very concerned about the child's safety at home. So that I was completely floored by. The better parts is the human decency I did see. I mean, the Coast Guard officer I saw was lovely. There was a lady who was cleaning the bathrooms when one of the unaccompanied kids, the 3-year-old, one of the really traumatized little girls, walked out. You know, she said, hey, and named her by her first name and gave her a big hug. So, I mean, there's good and there's bad. Of course, like anything else, it depends on who's showing up for work and how, as a human, with basic human decency, they're treating the people that they're there to protect.
Dr. Severe, I appreciate you being on. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Only on 10 News, exclusive exclusive new video just into our newsroom. This is showing the gun battle between a suspected human smuggler and CBP agents at the San Isidro port of entry. On Monday night, a 10 News viewer was driving back home to Chula Vista from Mexico, and moments after he cleared customs, he saw a white truck blaze past him. He saw CBP agents throw out spikes on the ground. That's when the driver of the truck crashed into another vehicle. He heard the first shot and turned on his camera phone, which captured the entire shootout. In it, you can see the gunman, 23-year-old Travis Eckstein, shooting out from the driver's side window. CBP now confirms that Eckstein was attempting to smuggle 2 people into the U.S. when he began shooting. 10 News reporter Rena Nakano scoured the web and found some telling details about the suspect. Rena.
That's right. We found this intimate Facebook post that was posted by Eckstein's mother. In it, she says she was very shocked when she heard about her son's death. It begins with this, quote, "At 7:20 a.m. yesterday morning, I received the call that no parent is ever prepared for." She writes about how she found out her son was shot and killed while driving through the San Isidro port of entry from Mexico into the United States. His mother, Donna Nis, says when CBP agents directed him into secondary inspection, Travis, quote, "pulled out a gun because he would rather die than go to prison." CBP has since confirmed that on Monday night, Eckstein was attempting to smuggle 2 Chinese men, 18 and 27-year-olds, into the country illegally. 7 Border Patrol agents fired back and killed Eckstein. No one else was hurt.